We're doing something a bit different today. I'm out here, I'm looking around, and all I brought with me was one camera. Just doing wide angle landscape photography, nature photography, and getting video of it, where I will clip together all the things that I see into a little video. And we're just kind of bouncing around from spot to spot today until I need to go home and get some other things done. So, the first place that we've arrived at that I'm about to walk around is the fish hatchery that I've been to a couple of times since I got here. It's been closed for a good amount of time, and it's opened back up to the reason being, we've talked about it before if you've been following along, but it's been a while because I haven't been out here. They closed it to an invasive species. And now they have signs up, the New Zealand mud snails. So I'm going to go learn about those on the sign there and do some walking around, see what we can see. So this is also going to be a little bit different in every way. It's been about 3 full weeks since I went out trying to do anything. I've been at home getting a lot of stuff done. And that's kind of for this personal side of things and kind of catching up. I'm going to do something a little bit different. Instead of waiting until the end of the day and then just kind of blurting everything out at once as it comes to me, I'm going to try to segment it out as we visit these different places. So we're just going to talk about one thing, which is kind of in the past 3 weeks, I've had 6 failures, is what I'm going to call them. Through some fault of my own, some were kind of beyond my circumstances, but how I dealt with them, what they were, how I dealt with them, etc. All of that we'll talk about. But so the first one, the last thing that I really did that I was recording that has been published, because I did try to record through the last few weeks with stuff around the house, but the last thing that I really did was I went out and I got some audio, and I did, the day before, I did some cleaning of old computer components. I got all that stuff set up. I made a whole thing, and the video might not have been that interesting. I definitely could have done better with it, and so that was something that I was going to work on, but I got all that stuff done, and I set up my computer that I use for media, for websites or podcasts, etc., videos, whatever it is, while I'm upstairs, reclining and playing games and things like that. I got all that done. And I moved it up, and then just a few hours after finishing up that video and getting everything set up, I was playing with the cat. She's got a little catnip-filled banana. I was tossing it for her and playing around with it. And then I backed up and I bumped into the TV that I was using as a monitor, and I knocked it over, and it fell onto the corner of the coffee table where my TV, the TV is, and smashed it. And it was like, well, that sucks. Not really what I had planned for. Not something I was happy about. I was quite upset about that, but it's just a piece of equipment. It is what it is. So I accepted it, and I looked to try to figure out if I could fix it, because especially after spending all day cleaning computer components and things like that, taking things apart, trying to put them back together. So I looked that up, but turns out a replacement screen that I can guarantee will fit, as they've marked it as a replacement, is like $400. That TV wasn't even $400 when we bought it. It was an old, smaller one. It's a couple years old, and it's just been used for other things since we both upgraded our main watching devices to bigger 4K TVs along the way as we play more games and things like that. But anyway, so that wasn't going to work. And I couldn't, looking at it, it was going to be like $150 to just get another one. TV screens are not cheap. I've replaced the screen on a 3DS before, but it's like, well, this will just be bigger. And I know I could replace the screen on a laptop if I had to. I almost did for the one that's broken, but then I realized by the time I got around to it and went, I can fix this, it's so outdated, it wouldn't be worth it to put any money into that. So anyway, yeah, that was the first failure, smashing a TV that I put into use. Well, the sun is a bit bright in the second location. There we go. We're coming up. Okay. So that was the first failure. It was my own fault. I'm playing with the cat, and I also did not have the TV supported on a thing that really should have been. I was using it as a monitor for the computer. TV monitor, what's the difference, really? And I just had it set on top of the computer tower, which was not fully stable. So I knew that, but I also figured, what's the odds that I'm going to bump into this when I set it up? Well, them's the odds, right? So that was a bummer. And that meant I took one of mine from my work computer downstairs and brought it upstairs, which left me with one less monitor, which, to be fair, I don't need that many monitors. It is not a need, it is a want. 2 is a minimum. A third one helps a lot. That's just what, for my job, it really is required. I could do it off of 1, and I would be a lot less efficient, moving things back and forth across the thing for my job in particular. Anyway, so then I got going, and I thought, well, how much is a new monitor? And I could not afford a new monitor, not by any stretch of the imagination. But then I had a thought, and I'll jump into a little bit of a story here. Back in the day, not quite 10 years ago, well, I guess I'll be 31, and I was probably close to, I was 21. So 10 years ago, I was taking some spare money that I had because I had recently moved to a higher paying job, which meant not minimum wage at that point. And I was making a little bit more, and I was spending it, mostly putting myself into debt as well, but I was spending it on old game consoles from Goodwill. I started going to thrift stores and finding what I could, and eventually I realized that everything around me, I would hit up everything within a 50-mile radius that I could find over and over, and that was back at the point where you still could find consoles and things like that in thrift stores. I would take them home, and was purchasing one of each for myself because I never had any consoles growing up. I had some handheld, and we owned a PS2 as a family. So I would buy the older ones, and then I would discover that sometimes they would not be working, which led me to, well, I didn't want to just waste this money, $20, $25, whatever I spent on the console, sometimes less. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look up how to fix them, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to start fixing them. So I would buy them, and I would repair them, and then I would turn around and sell them on Amazon. Basically refurbishing, essentially. But if it functioned, it functioned. And I didn't do too much. It was mostly taking apart, cleaning up, getting the rust off. I learned how to remove rust from certain things. I think I don't remember if I soldered anything, because I didn't think I had a soldering iron at that point, so I don't think I did anything. I think the most that I ever did was I had to remove a specific pin from an NES console so it could play games again, because it was a common thing where if it was an international model, maybe, I'm trying to remember something from 10 years ago, so I'm not 100% sure, but I do remember specifically going in and removing one of the pins so that games would play again on it. Anyway, after I found out that I couldn't find things in thrift stores, it was very uncommon to find that stuff, I was able to go on, and Goodwill had a website. The thrift store Goodwill has an online auction house, and I was able to go in and buy a couple. But for the most part, this didn't last very long, because after a few months I realized that all the prices were going for about what the things would sell for used secondhand anyway, so there was not really a market to be found in me buying these for cheap, fixing them up, and then selling them for a bit more to try to profit a little bit off of that. It was razor-thin margins, and soon it became none, because I realized that I was going to buy it for, say, $30, clean it up, fix it, and then sell it for no more than $30, so didn't really work out that well. But the point is, I did know of this auction house, this online auction site for used secondhand things that typically definitely go for cheaper than retail, but also they don't go for cheaper than what a used one would go for on eBay or anything else anymore. But I knew about that. And one of the things that you can still get for cheap is used monitors, especially if you don't care about much of anything. If they match your other monitors, if they are functioning. The ones I got were functioning, but the point is, I bought some used monitors from Goodwill, and I set up my new station. It's not ready to be shown in any way. I'm not super happy with the way it is, because I mounted it to a bookcase behind my computer, because in order to have a square of monitors with some on the higher, I had to get the mount higher up. It's going to be different, and I'm moving in a month anyway, so I just kind of slapped something together. The cables are all over the place, but when I move, I'll show you what I'm talking about. next time. And it's useful for working. I can have at least 2 monitors that I'm working on. I've actually started working on a third or sometimes the fourth. And then I have a vertical one. I now have 5 monitors for the work computer. And it's nice. These last 2 weeks since I started getting all that stuff, it's very nice to have. I've been mocked for it, and it's fine. I don't care anymore. That's been the longest time. I've been dealing with that ever since it was like, what do you need 2 monitors for? What do you need 3 monitors? There is no limit to how many monitors. If you can have that many and your computer can support that many with the card expansions, use every bit that you have, because it can always be used for more. You have no idea how useful it is to have something pulled up and be able to reference off of different things while never having to close our messaging system for our work or anything. So that was the fault. That was the failure. I shouldn't have knocked that over. I should have been more careful. My solution was to spend a little bit of money and get a couple extra monitors, which was very useful for a few different reasons. Now, I'm going to get out and walk around the second location that I've come to and take some more pictures. Well, on a day where I'm out talking about failures, another one has happened. I was bouncing back and forth off the tripod between this camera to get video and this camera to do the still photography. And so when it was off the tripod and on my bag, it fell. As I was going to get back into the car, I forgot it was there. And I don't know if you're even going to be able to tell. Probably, yeah, smashed. Now, I think, looking at it, that's just a filter, which is why I put a filter on there, is to protect the glass that is underneath for the actual lens. I can't exactly tell, but moving it around and looking at it, it looks like the filter took the brunt of it. And I've seen this before. I've looked it up online where people talk about how to remove a broken filter, because what has happened... Come on, get me back in light. What's happened is it took the brunt of the force, it hit, and it jammed it down into the threads that are there. So I tried unscrewing it, it doesn't work, which means that it is jammed into there. So I need to very carefully go home and actually disassemble and take apart and break the rest of that filter away in order to try to save the lens and the threads that are there so I can put more filters on it. So that's super disappointing and really upsetting and unfortunate that stuff just keeps happening. That's totally my own fault. I should have made sure that was more secure in the bag before it fell out of the bag as I was moving cameras around. I can't help but think about future purchases and things like that and spending money. It's just in my nature and I can't stop that. So, of course, throughout today so far of what I've been doing is taking some landscape photos that I really enjoy. I haven't done that in over a year, I think, of really making that the focus was to come out and do that. But then I'm also showing, like the pictures are nice, but I also like to show with the video. So I'm using both and doing that. And I keep thinking, oh, well, it'll be nice if I could do that with one camera. The eventual upgrade to a full frame camera that can do video the way I want to, so that I could just do both at the same time with one camera would be nice. But anyway, that kind of cuts it short. I need to go home and fix this. I can't continue until I can get that thing off of there. So I guess that's where I'm headed next now, is to go home and see if I can get that off. And then, I don't know, hopefully go back out, I guess, if I still have the attitude to do so. Kind of bummed. That was a really stupid mistake to make, and it's not the first time I've made a mistake like that. Same camera. It has been through hell. I was out back in Georgia taking pictures and using the camera for different things. I don't think I had that lens on it, but I put it on the tripod and then walked away for a second so I could set up for a shot, and I just kind of stuck it somewhere. I wasn't setting up for a shot with that camera. I was looking at something else. So setting up for that and putting it there, I didn't make sure it was stable, and the camera fell. And it fell onto the grass, thankfully, but it fell onto the cable that I was using to take the longer exposures and be the remote trigger. So it smashed the cable that was in the camera. It hit on the side of the camera where the cable was, and it broke that off in the camera. And I had to get some pliers and dig that out and then buy another cable and make sure the pins weren't damaged or anything. So should be okay. We're going to go home and doctor it and make sure everything's okay and pick up from there. Not how I wanted today to go. I was quite enjoying this. It's been very nice. And it was a good way to start expressing the last few weeks of failures and mental frustration that I've had with all of this. So the second failure that happened a few weeks ago was another problem of mine that I had that is my own. It was my own fault, and I've talked about it for a little bit, and it caused a ripple effect with some other things for changes that I've made. But I did lose some footage of my wildlife outing for the sage grouse. Just bouncing stuff around between the different things of where I offload footage to and not having enough storage because I was kind of at capacity already and hitting that point. I thought I had backed it up onto one of the other drives so I could take it off of the hard drive that I take out with me to shoot with. So I wiped that one when I went out to shoot again, and I didn't have it backed up. I think what happened was I saw, where I want to put it is full. Let me move this stuff somewhere else, clean this up so I can move it here. And that takes a long time because they're huge files. So I think what happened there was I took it and I started the transfer to go somewhere else and walked away. And usually what I do is I transfer off the card to another location and walk away. And so when I just came back to it, I forgot what I was doing and forgot that I hadn't transferred the footage I was transferring from the space that it needs to go to. So deleted, lost, just gone forever. Just no other way to put that. That is a failure on my part to properly secure the data that I go out and take and do, and sucks. My fix for that, we'll talk about in a bit, because it kind of involves, fixing that occurred more failures throughout it, but we'll get to that. I'm going to drive home and work on this lens. Okay, back at home. It's great. It covers my face. Relaxing, breathing. Definitely a good teachable moment. Maybe not for other people, but for myself. I've learned. I never hope to have to do this. Let's go ahead and bring the camera in a bit closer to what I'm doing here. Here we have the lens filter. Smashed. Point of impact, broke off into two pieces. Thankfully, I did not need to remove the glass in order to get it out. Looked up a video as exactly how. I do need to clean the glass out of the little bits in here, but it does appear there are some little specks on there, but I don't think they're scratches. I hope not. We're going to find out as I clean this. But I watched this video before, long before, and I was watching it again now with Adam Savage taking a camera lens with a broken filter to a bandsaw, which thankfully, I don't have a bandsaw, I don't have that. I did get the Dremel out and everything just to check that, but they had another video on their channel where they talk about the different filters with someone who does this for a living with fixing cameras and repairing them. And the first step he suggested was to get a grippy rubber thing, which we've got a Magic the Gathering playmat, which is rubber on one side and a bit of a texture on the top. It's not the most grip, but it worked. Between that and tapping down the filter onto there to realign it, and then putting the lens down on the thing and turning on the rubber mat, that was enough to loosen it up to the point where I could actually unscrew it. So that's come out. There's no, like I said, I hope no visible damage. I'm going to clean this real quick and then continue. Put it a little bit higher up. Okay. Went and got the cleaning kit. Start by confirming. Okay. All those little pieces were not glass, were not scratches. Now I do see some glass in there that I have to get out. So I'm going to wheel over here, get my iFixit. Get my little kit with tools, get these tweezers so I can get the glass out. Here's a piece. So, thankfully, seems like we're okay, which is good because this lens and this camera I use for more than just fun times. If it were actually broken, we would have a bit of a problem given the fact that I use this to make a side income. I would have a bit of a tricky situation on my hands there. Thankfully, this is actually the table that I had all of the products on that I'd been photographing for the past few weeks. I took all the photos of everything there, and then I was editing all of them. So thankfully my table's clear again, and you can tell I no longer have a backdrop or lights or anything. We'll talk about that in a minute, but we are fully into getting ready to move and packing everything up. There we go, there's a clean lens again. Still there. Still does this. I see no visible things there. Get it back onto the camera and check the autofocus, because all I did was immediately go, oh no. We are focusing. Okay. Whew. Man. My own fault. Very much a failure within myself. And I thought about it. I've been doing this for a few years now. I know better. I thought about it when I was out there as, oh, I should put the, I should have brought a strap to put this on. And then I thought, well, it's on the tripod. I'm just moving it back and forth off the tripod to use for the other camera. It's probably fine. Shouldn't have done that. I also thought about, as I was taking the pictures, because the sun is out and very bright, the clouds have cleared up, I thought, oh, well, what I'm currently doing is I'm trying to take, what I really got into was the focus bracketing that I do when I'm taking product photos. And so I was doing that with landscape so I could try to get as much detail as I could into the photo by taking a photo at taking a photo at a closer focus and then a little further away and a little further away, a little further away, and then you stitch them all together when you edit, and you get a lot of detail in your photo. And that's really what I want to do with the camera that I wanted to buy, which has a much bigger sensor. That's a long way off from this point now, given everything that's happened. But what I wanted to do was get a camera with it's got a bigger sensor, and it takes just ridiculously big photos as well. They call it medium format. So that's the next thing that I really want to buy for still photography and for my product work and everything like that. I do want to get that at some point. But anyway, I was doing that and I realized, I thought, oh, I should get a different filter. This is just a cheap filter. This is why I buy this. It's a UV filter. It's not anything special, but I have an ND4 filter that I want to put on there, which helps with the sunlight. I also thought about, oh, where's my CPL filter for when I was taking photos of the water? But either way, all the filters were not in the bag that I was carrying. They were in the bag in the car, and so that was in my head. But before that, I also thought, oh, lens hood. This is another great thing that I should put on there. This lens hood does not go to this camera. Grabbed the wrong lens hood. That lens hood goes to the 70-200, which is in a bag. I don't think I brought it with me because that was not my plan for today. So when I got out and I went, oh, I should put the lens hood on, I discovered, well, this doesn't fit, so I brought the wrong lens hood. But that is another point. I did drop this camera once before. That was a little bit different, but that was because I was wearing it on my belt with a belt release, a clip-on belt release that would clip into it. And I was wearing it on the belt, and I was walking around in North Carolina taking pictures, and my fat fold went over the belt and pushed the button and released it, and I dropped the camera. And I actually dropped it with the 70-200 on there and this lens hood, and I can see where it's all scraped up because it just kind of fell and bounced. But it protected the glass. It protected the more expensive lens. A lens hood is cheap. A lens filter is even cheaper if you buy the cheap ones. This is an expensive lens. This was like $1,000, I want to say. I don't remember. But I've got that, and I've got the scrapes from where, because I was walking on concrete at the time. I got the scrapes on the back of the camera to help remind me to be careful. And I thought about that and went, well, I'm already out here. It's fine. all of these things leading up to, I know better and I should have been more careful, and I wasn't. So, thankfully, doesn't seem to be any hugely permanent damage done. It does. This lens definitely has some wear to it as it is. The resale value just went down, but I have no intention of selling this if I can avoid it anyway. So I will get a different lens. I guess I'll go get that bag from the car and put the other lens on there and get the other lens hood if it is out there, wherever it is. Get ready. And we'll talk about a different failure here in a second when I come back downstairs. I don't actually own a lens hood for this. I'm remembering now. It's been a while since I've used it. Let's see. This is my CPL. I have the ND4. And that would have been where the UV one went with these cheap filters that I have, but I actually do have. Is this a 77 millimeter as well? It is. And this is a much nicer ND4 that I got for videos. So we're putting this on there today. And going back out, because I am not done. I did not want to be done. You need an actual wipe down. Yes, please. So, there was the failure in resolution right back to back. Let's make sure that this still fits, and let me go ahead and order. Whoop. Nope, that goes all the way down. Okay, we've got good threads. We did not break any of the threads. What we did hit, and I'm a little concerned about for the lens hood itself, is a little piece of plastic here has broken. It's kind of on there. That's what holds the lens hood on. If I had one, that would fit this lens. But I don't. So, where is the cap? I would have taken the cap off this morning, and I either left it in the car or I put it in the other bag that I put this camera in. So, anyway, let me check my list here. The third failure wasn't... Failure is kind of an odd word to use. It wasn't really a failure so much, but I'm classifying it as such because the other ones fit it better. It was more just a mental breakdown and block that was very tough to work through. Towards the end of May, I hit a real low point with everything that's going on of packing and getting ready to move and moving to a place that's more expensive and realizing that the progress that I was coming to has to be put on hold. I didn't quite, for the last year and change, I've really made progress on certain goals, like saving money instead of spending money, being mindful about what purchases I have, several other things, like in different areas. And I didn't realize just how much the money part of it had a hold until I realized for the next year, I don't think I'm going to be able to put money into savings, certainly not as much as I was. It'll be very little, and I won't be paying down my debt nearly as aggressively. I thought, okay, well, that's fine. Rational, doesn't have to be right away. It's been nice that I've been able to do that, but it's not a necessity. I certainly wasn't doing it for the first, 10 years of being an adult, and it's only picked up in the last few years. And everything else that I'm doing by eating better and working out and making progress and growing this wildlife hobby that I want to turn into a career that I've been doing, and I figured all of those would make up for the financial side of it, but I didn't realize how much of a hit that financial side was really going to be. So when that would hit, as well as the stress of moving and the more expensive and planning for everything and not get, and the two previous things that I just talked about, losing that stuff, spending a bit of money on monitors that I did not need, but I wanted to, and then the loss of the footage, realizing I was at capacity, it all kind of was compounding into the point where even when I would do something that I used to enjoy, playing video games or going out to see the wildlife, I'd only be happy in that moment, and then it would creep back in, this feeling of dread that would happen over and over, and no matter what else I was doing, it would just creep its way back in, and I would just fall back. I would fall all the way to the lowest that it could go, which sucks. And I can't say that it's fully, a few weeks later it's lessened, thankfully, but not as much as not at all, which would be nice. So it's not really a mental failure so much. Why are you so wiggly, arm? But it is a way that it was something that I had to go through and process. And even though rationally I could tell myself, look, you can survive, here's your budget, you know how much it's going to be, you have everything planned out, you can survive, and you could barely scrape by without getting a second job. So it's doable. It won't be much fun, but it is doable, and you can make it work. And rationally I can go, that's fine, I can get there. I don't have to put money towards it. I still will have a little left over. It's going to be a lot tighter of a budget than it used to be, but that's fine. I could do that for a year, and then we'd have to move somewhere else anyway. So it sucks that we have to move twice, but it's doable, and it's a lot less of a move than I've done a lot of moving in my life since I turned 18 and bounced from apartment to apartment pretty much every year, sometimes twice in a year, and have moved quite a lot. And we finally settled down for a little bit, and that was 5 years at the last apartment back in Georgia, and then 2 years here, and now we're going to be doing a year and then moving again. So it's not something that I haven't gone through before, and thankfully this is a lot less than the move from Georgia to Wyoming. Like, we don't have to spread this out over 3 days. It's 4 or 5 hours from here. So it's a lot less. It can be done in 1 day, which is really nice. It's going to be a stressful day, but it should be a one and done situation, besides having to come back for cars and cleaning and getting the rest of this apartment taken care of. But I could rationally tell myself that, or I could rationally tell myself that the money isn't there, or I could rationally tell myself that I have to have patience when it comes to growing the wildlife stuff, and go out and just do the best that I can and be proud of what I'm doing, and rationally that all makes sense. And then the dread would set back in. It would creep its way back in. And I did everything I could to rationally talk through it, to try different techniques and meditation and everything I could to try to it was just this mental block, because again, rationally, everything made sense. Nothing's terrible happening. There's no drastic action that needs to happen. It can all be talked through and explained and taken one step at a time. And then the unrational side of it is the anxiety of just everything hitting and bringing me down to where I don't get enjoyment playing video games anymore. And it hits there. And it's depression. It is. It's anxiety and depression. And it hits. And it's a huge problem for a lot of people. I'm not trying to make myself out like I'm any worse than anyone else who's been going through it, but that's what was affecting me. And unfortunately, I did feel better after spending money. It was solving problems, but it was spending money. And that kind of goes into what I said we talk about from the last one and moving into the next one. It kind of goes hand in hand, and it's all a weird thing. But we're changing it up. We keep changing. We're just taking it in chunks instead of doing one big thing. So we are going to pack up, go back out, go see what I can see, go take some more pictures, try to enjoy. I'm going to make a sandwich before I go because I'm getting kind of hungry. Wasn't exactly how I planned for this day to go down, but I'm glad that is not a permanent damage thing, because that would really, really suck. I definitely don't have the money now to try to buy a new lens or anything. And even though I got to a pausing point with my contract work this weekend, like I've been doing over the last few weeks, I finished out what was there, and it's time to send it all back, and I'm not going to get any more until after the move. So we're talking like August. I've got a bit of time there. If I had to spend $800 on a lens to be able to continue doing that, that would seriously dampen my profitability from something like that. So packing up, let's get back out there. All right, we're going up the road just a little bit. From where I am parked currently, I came back out to a spot that I've been to not that long ago. I was just out here recording audio and getting some video last month. It's nice and quiet, not too far out of town, but enough. And there's some pretty landscape. I'm not sure if it's quite a mountain. I mean, it counts. Definitely bigger than a hill. I'd say that's a mountain. So there's that. But while I drive right along here, it should be. Let's see, can we focus on me instead of the bright light behind me? Should be a little bit. Let's see. We came back out here. Yeah, like I said, about a month ago. Saw some new birds while I was out as well. But the spot right up the road is not just or the battery will die before I drive the next minute up the road, even though it showed a half a battery remaining. Not a half a battery. Anyway, the fourth failure occurred when I was trying to fix the second failure. Kind of. They're all kind of tied in related, but the second one, where I had data loss, where I deleted some footage, was unfortunate and not what I wanted to have happen. Not ideal by any sense of the imagination. Can I move you up a little bit? There we go. So, what happened was I made up my mind, and I had a few things line up where my contract money was coming in, and I was just accepting what was going to happen when moving and not financially able to save or things like that. So I figured I could spend some of my money. So the money that came in from the contract combined with some money that I had set aside in my savings anyway for something, and I got a fifth paycheck throughout the month. I got an extra one between when my bills were going to be due, and then it wouldn't be affecting the next month's bills, so I had some extra money. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger. Instead of using that money to all pay down the debt, I went, all right, well, instead, here's a thing that I definitely need to purchase. And I was super excited about it too, because for the first time since I turned 18, I was able to make a significant purchase without going into debt. I was able to pay that money out of pocket up front and have it for a purchase instead of the usual, well, I'll make payments and I'll pay extra in interest, but this is how the world works and this is how I get this thing that I either want or need. I was able to do that. What it was about $2,000 in computer parts to build a server, like I have been talking about, being at capacity and needing more space and not having anywhere to put it if I just buy more drives. So I needed to solve for that. And I was tired of everything that, like I said, losing that footage meant a lot to me. I really wanted to keep all of that. That's one of my crowning achievements so far since I started doing this. There have been a few things that I've seen that are just flat out amazing to me. They give me, like, that's a literal sense of the word, that I get amazement that I was able to witness something and capture it digitally. The sage grouse has been one of them. We'll talk about another one later on, but the sage grouse was one of them. So losing something about that really kind of bummed me out. And I wanted to make sure that never happens again, because what is the point of all of this? If I'm going out and I'm doing my best and I'm learning and I'm reading books and I'm watching videos and I'm trying to learn cinematography a bit so that I can try to apply that to what I'm doing with making videos, just practicing here and wanting to do better with these and make them a bit more, watchable cinematically, while also telling the story of my life, essentially. I'm trying to do all of that, and if I run out of space and I have nowhere to put the wildlife footage that I'm getting, what is the point? So I bit the bullet. I knew I would have to do it eventually, and that's kind of why the perfect storm of all of the things lined up to the point where I would have the money, and I went, all right, well, I'm doing this. So I started ordering parts. I built it out. I looked at everything there. I waited. I back and forth, talked to my significant other, went through the entire thing, made sure all the financials were checked and good and everything was fine, and I pulled the trigger there. This is not where the failure is, per se. The fourth one came about because I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, let's try to do a video before I do this explaining a bit, because I think that's going to be really interesting. I understand it to a different level, and I think I could try to convey that. And I've never really done a more professional video, in a sense of sit down. I had multiple cameras. I had the backdrop. I had the lighting set up. I researched the topic instead of just being here in the car and talking off the top of my head. I researched how digital storage works. I researched how digital photography works, how it kind of all blends together. And I looked up the how much data I use and the different things to try to explain it to someone who has absolutely no idea what it is. They just understand that the camera works And a video is video, but what does it mean and how do I store things and like all of that. I wanted that to be tried to be explainable on the easiest, simplest level. So I got everything set up. I got all the computer components coming in. Some of them were lost and it took longer and it took a whole thing, but I got everything ready. It all came in by a Friday. So I set everything up that Friday night and I went to bed and I woke up early on Saturday like I usually do. And I went, all right, let's record this. And then I fumbled my way through 2 hours of trying to record what probably will be less than a 10-minute video because I wanted it to be concise. I wanted it to be not quite perfect, but at least each section that I start talking, I want to be able to go through. I didn't write a full script. I kind of wrote some talking points, but I figured out exactly how I wanted to say it, and then it was just a matter of getting that entire thing out. And boy, I don't do well at that. That is something that I thought I would practice when I was doing the audiobook earlier this year, and so that would help when it comes to recording lines or voiceover work. And I still just have a time with it, a difficult time with that. It is much harder than just this, where I can just talk, and if I flub a word, I can say it over again, and I'm not going to go edit that out. I'm not going to worry about it. But with that, I wanted it to be, I didn't try to do the whole thing in one take. It was just one paragraph at a time, but I would still do that paragraph 10, 20 times. So it was difficult. It was very difficult. But I got through it all. And then I went, okay, here's some other things I want to do. I had skipped my working out the day before as far as riding on the exercise bike so that I could spend the time getting all the computer components unboxed and getting everything set up for the cameras. I had broken down all of my photo work, the contract work that I do, and set up for the video. So I skipped riding the bike. So I got that thing done. I was like, well, this is just a lot and not quite what I was expecting. I'm not really ready to just jump into it yet. And also, if I wait, I have one more component that would be coming in, one more piece to this computer, that if I just wait a couple hours, it's coming in the mail that day, that Saturday. So I waited, and it came, and then I went down to start. By the time it got there, I went, look, I don't want to rush this, because I'm already anxious about it and I'm super excited, but I'm also nervous because I've never done anything like that. I built computers, but I've never built a server, and it was a little bit different, and like reading up on it made me nervous. And I realized, I went, all right, here's what and I went down to kind of look and start, and I realized that when I recorded the data video, I did not have audio going on one of the cameras, which you would think, not a big deal, because that means you still have audio from one of the cameras, so you still have the audio. But if I don't have it recording on both of them, I can't sync them together. I'm not going to manually sync 2 hours worth of footage to cut down into a 10-minute video, the whole thing. So I just re-recorded it. It was about a half an hour the second time. Less flubs. I already kind of knew what I was saying. It was fresh in my head from just a few hours before. So I was able to go through and just re-record it. And at that point I went, now I'm rushing. That was my fourth failure. Now I'm doing things and I'm making mistakes because I'm anxious and nervous and trying to get through all of this. And I forgot to check to make sure I was recording audio on one of the cameras. Let's make sure that doesn't happen, because I'm only going to really have one shot at this, at building a computer and recording all of that and capturing it as, the first time. That's not necessarily true, but we'll get to that. Anyway, I wanted to just take my time. So instead, I went and played video games for a bit. I relaxed. I meditated. I showered. I ate dinner, and then I went down after dinner and figured I'll just start on it. I'll just get this going a little bit. I have like a joke that I want to intro the video with. I've already thought of and shot something for that specifically. Let's just get it started, because I am excited to do that. And then we'll see how far I get. And then I started going through and I started making mistakes because it was after 10 o'clock and I was tired and I was rambling and not making sense. And I knew that the video wasn't going to be great. So the fourth failure came from not recording the audio at that point. The fifth failure was kind of that entire video as it is, building a computer. I don't know what I'm going to do with that. It's not going to be good. It's not usable as decent footage that I would want to show necessarily. It'll go up on Patreon probably. It won't be edited. It won't be cut together in any way. It'll just me. I haven't touched editing in 3 weeks. Since the last stuff came out, I haven't touched it. Because I just needed to take a break and I needed to work on the contract stuff because I wanted to knock that out before the move. And we still have a couple of weeks before moving where I can come out and do something that should be a lighter load, like taking pictures and things like that. So I haven't edited it yet, but my I'm thinking I don't want to toss it. I don't want to delete it or anything. I still recorded it. I still experienced it. It was a learning experience. I'll just take it and I'll clip it together by just, I'll put all the clips in a row in the sequence that they were recorded in. I'll sync the two cameras because I had a top-down. I was trying to fix it from when I've been cleaning the PC components the weeks before, and I was just kind of like, well, here's my phone, and I'll just record this little thing so I can kind of tell you what I'm doing, and then just not worry about what it looks like. And really, the entire point of that wasn't my idea going into the cleaning video was not to do any of the recording bits and talking or any of that. It was just to do a time lapse. I just went, well, this will be interesting. I'm going to spend a couple hours doing something that I enjoy, cleaning computer components. I'll just do a time lapse of that. It'll be interesting. But it went into it a bit more than that. So this time I was like, well, I can at least talk about things. I can be, as knowledgeable as I can be and explain when I'm not about what I don't know, but I can do all of that. And so I can get a top-down shot and I can have the other one. And so I set up for all that. And the computer, we'll go into that for the fifth one. But the fourth one was rushing, not checking the audio. So I wasted about 2 hours. You consider it just to be practice for the eventual video that I then did record later on. I think that one will turn out better. Anyway, I should just accept that when I do it a second time, it does come out better, but it is depressing to think of being like, well, I either need to start rehearsing, which becomes a whole thing to itself of making the time for that, or accepting that those kind of videos are going to take more time to really nail out to be perfect. But that was the fourth failure that I experienced in the last few weeks. Did not record audio on one of my videos that I was trying to make, and I had to re-record the whole thing in order to make it, I assume, salvageable. Again, haven't edited any of that. So I'm going to take some pictures here since I'm parked already, because this is a nice little landscape. It's kind of hazy out. I don't think the fires have necessarily started yet. They may have, because I know that it's the season for it, but I don't know for sure. I can see some pronghorn in the distance. There's one right over there. I did not bring any wildlife photography things with me today. It is strictly this. But it's also hot. Oh, wow, it's gotten hot. So I'm going to take this off. Oops, that's the mic. I'm going to take this off and readjust the mic to the shirt and then continue on. I think the next place I'm going to go after to take some pictures here will be the state park, because I'm not too far away from that and I really enjoy it. Or, instead of the state park, I could go somewhere that I haven't been before, but I've driven past, which is just a public access area off the river, a little further on from the state park. I'm going to go see what this is about. Well, that was a pretty spot. Didn't much care for walking the trail. It was very single file, small, with tall grass right up to the edge on either side, which just makes me stomp and go, snakes, the whole time. But it was pretty at the other end of it. You go all the way down and you get to a pond, I guess. It's still part of the river, but they call it a pond here on the sign. But it was very pretty, and I'm glad I came out here and stopped here. The fifth failure that I experienced in the last few weeks was fixing the one that I was just previously talking about. During the building process for the backup server that I built, I tried something that I know better. I've been warned about it. I've definitely read online. I know the risks, and I still went ahead and took one anyway and ordered a used part for the backup server. It wasn't a graphics card. I know to avoid those, especially with crypto mining and things like that. But I thought, I'll take a chance on this processor because it's one of the few areas that I can kind of scale back on. If I scale back on the main part of it, what costs the most, the drives, I risk losing data and I risk the whole thing. So the processor, I ordered that used, not refurbished, but just used like new. And then I ran into just a world of trouble as I was building it. The video itself, like I said, I recorded the process of building it, but I don't plan on using that for anything. And the server itself deserves its own video when it's completed. It's almost done. We're so close. Tomorrow I might be able to start the process of finishing it up. I need to actually cable manage everything and make it presentable, because right now it is just a mess. But getting that built, it deserves its own video. I think it's enough. It might not be a long video, but at least something where I can really look into it and talk more about it and explain the process, since I was kind of doing that while I was building it, and I won't be using that footage for anything really. But it's important to the wildlife career that I'm doing. This entire thing is what I'm doing, and how to make the backup server and why I chose that, and how it's not really a backup. It's its own video. But the processor I got gave me trouble. I built it, and I just went ahead and I didn't test anything, and I should have tested as I was going. I learned a lot from that experience, but I should have been testing things to make sure that it was functional. I got all the way to the end, and it wouldn't boot on, and it turned on, and I got fans spinning, and I could not get a signal. I could not get anything out of the video whatsoever, which made me start. I finished it up. I started it, as I mentioned in the last failure. I started it the night before and worked on it for an hour or two before I went, no, I'm too tired, I'm making mistakes, I'm not being clear, I just need to stop. And I was running into things being like, oh, well, this is interesting, and this is, and so this will go here. And mostly that was trying to fit all the fans in the case and try to figure out, and I went ahead and customized the case so that I could fit things that it's not really meant to do, but I'm doing anyway. Anyway, point being, get to all of that, no video, start debugging, start troubleshooting. 2-3 hours later after that, I'm frustrated. I feel like a failure. I feel like I wasted $2,000. I know that isn't true. I know it's probably just one component. I'm so sure that I took all the proper precautions this time to make sure that I didn't shock anything. I actually had the grounding wrist strap, whereas my other computers, I did not have that when I was building them. So I was pretty sure it wasn't my fault, but I was going through and it was just, well, now what? And I reached out to the motherboard manufacturer to ask them, being like, look, I can't get any of this. And they were no help at all. Thankfully, I found more information on forums while I was waiting. But I knew the processor. I was like, this is the only thing that was used and not refurbished that I know I took a risk on, and it could be this. If it's not this, then it's the motherboard, and the motherboard is still, it's under a warranty because it's brand new. So I have a greater risk. So I went ahead and returned the processor and bought the next one, which is, I cheaped out as it was getting a lower tier one that required me to use a graphics card because it did not have any graphics. So, some computers, some processors can contain the graphics chip themselves. It's not great, but it can have that, and it can run what's on the motherboard already, and I don't need any graphics whatsoever. This thing just has to turn on and stay on, so all I need to do is plug in to that. So that worked out anyway. I was cheaping out on that, thinking one day I'll upgrade it, but I don't need to do that anytime soon. I'm trying to just squeak by as cheaply as I can to do this, which was a mistake within itself. And then I went even further by buying one used, thinking this should be fine, I should be able to work. It didn't at all, wouldn't boot, wouldn't do anything. So I had that whole nervous wreck for about a week after I got that, until the new processor came in the mail and I installed it and it booted right up the first time. It was like, oh, great. That actually is great because I don't have to go any further with anything else. So I know better than getting used components, especially the way people, you never know if you get one that was just barely touched in a computer and then got disassembled, or if it's been running 24/7 trying to mine a cryptocurrency, like, especially with graphics cards. I don't think I would ever buy a used graphics card. It's just such a risk for so much money for what they go for. If they were cheaper, sure, it would be like, all right, well, that's an understandable, it's a risk, but that's fine, but they're still going for crazy amounts. So anyway, that was my fifth failure. I'll be honest with you, it's noon. I've been doing this for 7 hours, including the having to go back home and the stress of, did I just break my camera? I'm tired. I'm hungry. So I'm just going to move straight into the sixth failure, which really, I had the seventh one today with dropping my camera. That was a really stupid mistake, and it could have been very costly, and thankfully it wasn't. But I know better, and that's disappointing in myself. But the sixth failure came yesterday, where after I got all of the backup server online, after the processor came, I got everything going. I put in some drives. I let it do its thing, creating a parity so that I could start putting some stuff onto it. I then did this has been like a 5-day process at this point, from where I started it in the middle of the week. because I installed some of the drives, but not all of them, because I just wanted to make sure that it worked. Then I made enough room. Then I pulled all of my videos off of the existing backup spread across multiple drives on the backup server I have, and the whole thing. I got everything transferred, and that took over a day, because you're talking about I'm moving like 15 terabytes of data. That was what I filled everything up with. So I got all of that, then I put all the other drives in, and then it has to format all the other drives that are just now going into it, and that process is currently going. I started it yesterday around noon once I finished all of my contract work. I totally finished it out yesterday. I had been working on it back in May. Towards the end of May, I took one day and I went, here's my shooting day, and I just took pictures that whole day. I spent like 8 hours. I've been working probably 7 days a week because of this contract work for the last month or so to get all of this done. So I spend at least 5 or 6 hours each weekend day working on the contract work. But that day I took longer. I took photos of every single thing that they sent me throughout all of it's like 3 big boxes full of stuff. I took pictures of all of it. And then I've just been editing it little at a time. I edited some back in May so I could get paid, because it's on a monthly schedule. It's only what I complete during the month that I get paid on the first of the month, basically, the first week of the month. So I knocked out some of that just so I could get to that point. And then I've done the rest of it now. And technically we still have, it's the 13th today. I still have the rest of the month that I could have done it, but I'd rather be focusing on other things. I'd like to be able to come out and do this and not feel the stress of like, I have a responsibility that I have to get done. So I want to be able to do that. And also I still have a bunch of packing that I have to do. We have to be totally packed up by the like second week of July. So I have a bunch more work to do there, but I've been doing a lot, as you might have noticed in the basement. I broke down a lot. I packed all my camera stuff up, all the lights and everything that were down there. I packed all the camera stuff into bags, and then I just take what I'm going to use over the next month whenever I can get out. So the point was, I finished all the contract work yesterday, totally done. I spent about 5 hours and knocked out the last of it. I did 10 items yesterday. I did all the editing on them, and I got everything done. I got everything uploaded, and then I went, all right, I'm done with that work. Now I'm ready to work on this stuff, because the backup server is ready for the next step, which is install. I take all of the drives out of my computers, my other computers, out of the backup server that I bought, the little 2-bay one. I get all of those drives and I put them into the big computer, and I say, okay, I'm ready to go, process everything and give me all of my available space so that everything is back. So I have space to start putting things onto there. So I get everything there, and during that process, I'm also putting other drives in my older computers, because I went through a bunch of laptops and pulled them out, just so I had something. I like to put things in use. And I made the stupidest possible mistake, which was, it could have been very costly, and it kind of is. I was putting drives into computers, and I knew I had some SSDs that came in from, if you remember in the PC cleaning video, if you watched that, I had some drives that came in with the components that I got from a family member's significant other. I just had some extras, and they're small SSDs, not a big deal. And so I took that and I plugged it in. I put them into my other computers as just like, here's some extra space. Here's an SSD, use this for something, because it doesn't, And I put them in, and I plugged them in, and I turned on the computer, and it popped up, and I went, that's weird. Only 60 gigs. This is a 120 gigabyte SSD. That's weird. Maybe it's got a partition on it. Maybe some of that space is being taken up by where it used to run a copy of Windows or something, for example. So I format it, and it still doesn't pop up as 120. And then I dig deeper, and I pull up the list of all of them. And they're not named, they're just called disk 0, disk 1, disk 2, all the way through all the disks that are on my computer. And I know very clearly, I'm like, no, wait a minute. One of these SSDs is my copy of Windows. If I delete that, I'm screwed. I don't want to do that. It'll wipe my whole computer, and I use this for work. That's not the one. And then I see one that's 200 something gigabytes, and I go, that's it, because I also had a 240 gigabyte SSD. Here's where the mistake is made. The 240 gigabyte SSD is in the other computer. What's in this computer is not the 120. No, wait, I'm sorry. The 120 is in the other computer. The 240 was already in there, but the 240 is the one that I've been putting all of my contract work on for since the parts got here back in May, so about a month. And I formatted it without thinking, because I went, well, this shouldn't, and it didn't pop up and say, well, this has data on it. And of course not. It's totally my fault, and it's an SSD. So once it's formatted, it's gone. So I lost all of that. But It had already been uploaded, and so I already have finished files from that upload, so I have my edited work done. I have the raw files because I am smart enough to know that I don't delete then anything off a memory card until it's totally securely backed up. If you go back to Failure 2 where I deleted that stuff, didn't do that. Should have made sure about that. That should always be the thing. The memory card for the camera is right here, what I've been using today. I can't grab it, it's attached to the tripod. That had all of the photos on it until today. I smartly backed those up, an actual backup in 2 different places, but it was all still on the card as well. So I still have my raw files and I still have the finished product. The only thing I don't have is the in-between editing progress, which is useful if I ever have to go back and do it. But if anything ever comes up, it has yet to, in the hundreds of products that I've done so far, it's yet to come up where it's been like, hey, I need to tweak this or go back or do this. But I have the raw files, so I can just start over on the editing process. Now that's probably about 30 to 40 hours worth of work on all of those products. So I don't need that. I have the finished stuff and I have the raw. I don't have to go back and make that a thing, but I should have been far more careful about that, and things should be backed up properly. And when I say backed up properly, not in the way that I'm currently backing it up, and I'm going to fix that, at least for the contract work, because I can do that. It's much smaller files, it takes a lot less space, I can do that. The wildlife backup is a whole other thing that we'll get into in another video when I talk about more of the server. But that, and then dropping the camera today was a stupid mistake. Those are the 7 failures that I experienced over the last month or so, kind of. Each one I have done my best to address so that it doesn't happen again. I've taken it as a learning experience. I've done the best that I can about making sure that that particular thing won't happen again to the best of my ability. It's not been super fun. There have been moments it's been okay overall. I will be glad when the stress of the move was over and everything and we'll just settle in, but I'll be honest, it's been little things that kind of like perk me back up and get me going. And that, specifically today, I was getting ready to do this. I woke up at 3 for whatever reason. So I'm extra tired because I got up 2 hours earlier. I just woke up and went, well, I guess I'm not getting back to sleep, because I tried and it wasn't happening. So I was up early, and then about 4:30 I started actually getting ready to leave at 5. And I went and I didn't grab my other boots that I bought while I was here. I grabbed the boots that I'm wearing now. And these boots are a little bit special. I didn't think they would be. They're just boots. But I realized today that I bought them when we were in Florida on a family vacation in 2018, I think. I think they're 4 years old. It was summer of 2018, I believe. I don't think it was 2019. It could have been. It was either 18 or 19. I don't remember. I bet it was 19 because I had the bigger lens, didn't I? Or did I? Hold on. I'm gonna drive now because it's late. It's late enough in the day and I'm hungry. That pimento cheese sandwich really did not do much to sate my appetite here. So I am going to head and drive back home. But we're going to talk while I drive because that's a thing that I do, and I just hope the audio turns out good enough. Try to adjust for the mic here. Okay. Nobody coming. 2019, I looked it up. July of 2019. We as a family pack up and meet siblings down there. We did it. We're all adults now at this point. All of my various family members and siblings. And so we rented 2 Airbnbs to hold all of us. One for kind of the adults, more of that, and one for us goofy kids, and, you know, again, all adults. But anyway, point being, we went down there, and this was the first time really that I had cameras and that I had the focus of looking for wildlife. And I was excited about that. I've really enjoyed some of the, hold on, truck pulling over in the other lane. Okay, we're all good. Some of the photos I got from that are really cool, and I really like them still and stuff like that. But I experienced 2 things really, that were just, as I kind of talked about earlier, and now I'm coming back to it here, things that are amazing to me, things that literally bring me amazement. I managed to go out, just kind of wandering around driving around, checking on Google, trying to see what I could see, and I managed to take with me I took with me the still photo, and I managed to find a spot. It was by the beach that we would always go to as kids, but it was on the other side. Now, I have very little memory of this place because I haven't been there in a very long time, and certainly not as an adult. But across from this beach is a dock with the bay. You've got the ocean on one side and the bay on the other, because we're in the panhandle of... Wait, the panhandle? No. Is that what that part's called? No, it's not. The panhandle is there. Wait. What is a panhandle? Anyway, it's a matter of hundreds of feet, less than a mile, and you've got ocean on one side and the bay on the other. Or, I think it's called the bay. The point is, I went over to there to look and see what birds I could see, and I went out and I found a dock, and there's practically no one there, and I'm looking around and watching, and fish are jumping up out of the water. Big fish are jumping up out of the water, which is really cool. And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, how can I get a picture when I can not predict at all where the fish are jumping out? And that's when I hear like an exhale of air and some bubbles, and I went, oh, what is that? And I look around and I see where the ripples were, and I wait and I watch, and then it happens again, and I notice something coming up, and I think and I look and I take some pictures, and I realize it's a manatee. And then another one, and then I think a third one. I think on that day there were 2 or 3. And I just watched. I'm probably out there for an hour, 2 hours, just watching them. They just sink back down, they come up to the surface, they exhale, get their air, and go back down, and just, that's what they're doing. And they're doing that until eventually they leave. And then I leave. And on my way as I'm leaving, I hear a rustle in the bushes, and I immediately jump back and ran, because I get a good 10 feet back and then turn around and look, because I'm just like, oh, I immediately assume it's a snake, and that's one of the biggest fears I have. But it wasn't. It was a lizard, and I looked more into it as to exactly what kind. But it's a big one. I don't think it's an iguana technically. I have to remember what it's now been several years, but fairly big lizard with some kind of grub in its mouth that it had just snatched up from another one. There were 2 of them fighting, and that's what caused the big rustle. Anyway, those are moments, especially seeing manatees. I thought, oh wow, maybe that happened, maybe that's fairly common for you to see that, because there are signs that say no fan propellers of any kind. You can only do kayaking paddles, and don't go too far, because there are manatees. So I assumed, well, that's not, maybe that's a common thing. And I remember talking to the family that we have living down there, who are residents who go there all the time. They're like, never seen manatees. That's awesome. I'm like, well, okay. So that's a once in a, I was already just like, can you believe in manatees? And then to find out from locals that they're like, yeah, that's not a common thing. So even more amazing. And then seeing the lizard, to me, those 2 things really just kind of cemented it in as wow, this is a great trip. I got to see cool things. This is something, and it really started pointing me in this direction of finding wildlife, because I was still experimenting with it at that point. By 2019, in the summer of it, I was all in. I don't think I had the Canon big lens. I think I was using the other big one that I had at the time that I've gotten rid of now because I needed the money. It wasn't quite up to snuff of what I wanted it to be. So anyway. The point of the whole reason, all of this, that whole story, is all to tell you about while I was on vacation in Florida. When I'm on vacation, I'm far more carefree and far more willing to spend money. I agonize, outside of a vacation setting, I agonize it and make sure that I'm really using that as best I can, because I don't have much, and I try not to put myself in debt. When I'm on vacation, it's far more of whatever. I saved money for this purpose. I'm here to have a good time. But then I spend it on, that's what you would expect, the point of a vacation. But I spend it on things that aren't vacation. I'm not the tourist buying, gimmicky things like shirts and shot glasses and various things with just the name of the place that I've been. So I remember that I bought a pack of socks, and I bought these boots, being I need something more substantial than the shoes I've been going out in. I'm willing to spend a bit of money. Let's go to, I just went to Walmart and bought some of the cheapest ones that they had, but I bought myself a pair of socks, a pack of socks, because I was like, I need those. Mine are wearing thin, and they're getting to the point where I've got holes in them. And then while I was there getting the socks, I thought, why not get a pair of boots? They're not going to be great. They're not going to last, but they're just a pair of boots. They're not going to mean anything. And now, today, thinking about that, what I thought about was more of just like, think about how long ago that was. 3 years. What have you done in 3 years? How far have you come? Look at everything that you've been doing and how much more you will be doing, because I have no intention of stopping. This is still, I see this as the beginning. I still see myself as just starting to claw my way into finding what it is I like to do and where I'm going and how to get to things. And I've already seen things that bring me amazement, like oversized load. It was a little thing, and several of those things have happened since, which just kind of just brought me as like, oh look, maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe the stress that I'm feeling will go away. It's not going to be, nearly as bad as I'm thinking it might be. Or even if it is, we'll get through it, and there's going to be plenty of opportunities to go still do what it is that I want to do and have the fun that I want to have. And I should see it as an adventure, an exciting thing, instead of the dread that has been, as I mentioned, creeping in constantly. That little thing, it was just a little reminder to think about where I was and how far I've come and what is still to come. I am, when I can get past all of the headache, all of the stress and everything, when I get past that and I kind of settle into it, I'm sure Colorado will be very exciting. I'm sure it will be filled with lots of exciting opportunities and new things to see. I may not have gotten to do everything I wanted to in Wyoming, but I also planned for far more than I ever did. Back in Georgia, I had no plans to really do anything. I just would think about it and go do it. And I think about that sometimes, about how I would just come home from work and go, well, I've got 2 hours before I really need to start dinner, 2 hours until I should start cooking, 3 hours until I really need to start cooking, and maybe 3.5 hours until I'm just eating a sandwich to get some food in me, and then I'm going to bed because it's so late. I'm going out, and I grab the camera, and I just walk out, and I drive, and I just go somewhere, and I go somewhere I've never been, and I try to explore somewhere, and I find something on Google Maps, or I go play Pokemon Go, and I take the camera with me so I can just try to experience something new. And I did that a lot. I did that for several months before I started kind of planning it out and going to the locations that I would go to regularly before I left. And I've done way more of that here. Even if I don't go as far, I've still traveled several hours. And I don't think I'm going to get to Yellowstone, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean I will be back here. I will visit Yellowstone in my lifetime, without a doubt. It may be a bigger trip that requires a bit more planning, but I'll do it. I'm holding out a little bit of hope here. I'm thinking if I can get everything packed up, maybe I can go ahead and do it. But it's tougher because I'm about to be home alone for basically the next month up until moving time, as Bonnie goes off to college. It's because she does summer college since she's a teacher during the year. Anyway, it's harder to get away and do that when I have to kind of take care of things myself and make sure that the cat is taken care of and things of that nature. And then there is just a mountain of things to pack and all the all the packing that has to be done. So even though there is more stress on the horizon, there are good times to be had even through the stress. And beyond that, once I'm settled in, I am excited to go visit all of the places and experience all the new things, like I did here, and like I did when I went on vacation in Florida, or when I did in North Carolina when I would visit there, and the trips I would take within Georgia that I could do in a day, and all of the things. I know that there will be more and it will be better, and that has been an ongoing theme that I keep reminding myself over the last few months, is basically since we found out what was going to happen and we were going to be moving, as things kind of fall into place. But officially, everything is now there. I've got moving trucks booked. I have the reservations for that. I have a lot of things already packed up. I really just need to go through and pack up all of our collectibles and magic cards and fun things that we had on display in the living room. I need to get all of that stuff packed up. I need to pack all of my books. I've donated so much stuff recently, trying to just pare down, and it really has made me want to, and I don't know if I'll get to do it because I just won't have the space in Colorado because we're moving into such a smaller place. But I do think it'll be interesting for no one else but myself, maybe, but I think it would be cool to record a series of just stuff I own, because I don't think I'll own it forever. I'm sure at some point we might move into another small place, and then it comes up and it goes, all right, well, you got all these boxes of comics. Do you really need all of those? And then I have to make the decision. And if I ever come to that point, like I have, and I go, no, if it comes down to it, I'd rather keep camera stuff than comic books. The comic books have to go. So before I have to get rid of those things that I enjoy and, stuff, I just want to make videos about stuff that I have, how I got it, why it means something to me if it does. Maybe it doesn't. Or is it just a cool thing? Does it have any kind of value? Does it have any sentimental value? Any of that could be done and just kind of show the stuff in a way that can be captured digitally so that should anything happen or I lose it, or I have to give it away or sell it or whatever it is, it was recorded in some way. I have some record of it. And I'm going to try. That has been in my head as something I want to do. And I kind of do that a little bit with the things that I have for recording purposes and the wildlife and everything. So it's not completely unheard of. It's not something that I haven't really done before, but I really want to do it at some point, maybe in the next year, if I can set up an area and a camera and everything in the new place. We'll see. It's going to be real cramped. My first foremost is to try to get just my computers, because that for the next year I definitely need, so I can work, so I can edit, so I can have my backup server, I can have all of these things. That's the main priority, is to make sure that there's space for all of that, and the gaming console and the TV and everything like that. If I can get that stuff and make sure that it's all set up, I can continue to function and do everything that I've been doing for the next year. Anything extra, the next process, the next priority that I really need to do is try to get things so it's not just living in boxes, because that's kind of what I'm imagining right now. Is it's going to be floor to ceiling, all along the wall, just rows and rows of boxes of everything that we own, because every place we've been living in has been much larger than the place we are about to go to, so it's going to be cramped, basically. But I said I wasn't going to just do a long thing all here at the end of the day where I just spout everything out, but I did it anyway. That's my style as it comes out, as it turns out to be. I do want to just talk about a few more things. What I'm going to try to do, because these are smaller, well, I kind of did with this one, I'm going to make a video specifically about the server once I get it actually put together with the pieces and everything. Once I get all that done, I'm going to talk about the trouble that I had, go into a little bit more detail. I'm going to go over that whole thing with the server, and then before I leave, if I can, it should only be a couple hours, depending on how long or anything, so it's definitely possible. I would like to set up and drive around the town that I live in currently with everything, because that won't be out to the public for long enough that all have already left, so I feel more comfortable doing that for safety reasons. But I just want to record that, and I really not only because I've lived here for 2 years, I did like this place for everything, I enjoyed my time here and it's been nice. I don't know if we'll be back to live here, it kind of doesn't seem like that in any point in the future, but maybe visiting. But I also would like to show my family, who always talked about coming to visit, but COVID has prevented that and still prevents that entirely. So it would be nice to just drive around and go, here's where we lived. Here are the things, We would get takeout from this Pizza Hut or something like that, Something like that. I'd like to do a little drive-through, just a little drive around and show what it was like what the city is like, the town. It is a city, what this city is like. Because again, similar to the stuff, I won't be here forever. I won't have this forever. And at some point, it would be nice to have a digital record of it. And I specifically, as I've talked about, don't show these kind of things for my own safety and the safety of the things that I take that are very expensive. And I don't want people to know where exactly I live, since this just goes out onto the internet. But that's going to do it today. I am back in the city from all the driving that I just did, and home will be here shortly. And I am going to rest and probably edit, if not today, this next weekend, after I get all my packing done. I live in boxes. like I was talking about. And that's just the stuff that's down here. My goal is to bring everything up into the living room before the moving day, so that on the day of, it's just take everything and go into the boxes. And then we have to come back to get the other car, to do the cleaning, and to donate all of the furniture. I had to book a pickup truck for that because I don't have a car that can do that or anything, and get rid of the couches, the recliner, the washer dryer. I'm sure there's more, some bookcases, end tables, pretty much everything, because we have no room to take any furniture. But on a bit of a better note, and on goals I've accomplished, and things that I want to do, things that I got to do, things that I will be doing, for video games, I'm onto the 7th generation of Pokemon in my challenge to get myself through all of them, to just play all the way through them. And they put out a trailer for the newest one. It's very dramatic. The newest Pokemon comes out at the end of this year, and my goal now is to actually be done with this thing and be on to the new one by the end of the year, so I can be playing it, because I would otherwise hold off until I get to that point by playing through all of the games. But I'm only 2 away. This is 7, and the newest one will be 9. So I still have, well, wait a minute. Well, no, I still, okay, so I'm on 7. I'll play through 7. I'll play through 8. Then there's another one that technically doesn't take part in that order. So 3 games, and then to the new one. I have to just play through 3 Pokemon games by, I think, November, and it's June. So I have plenty of time, and I'll definitely be able to do it, even though I plan to do a bit special when it comes to one of them. But anyway, I've been making progress there. It's gotten enjoyable again. I've talked about it before, where I was just kind of like, oh, this is needlessly grinding. But then playing through Pokemon, the 6th generation, X and Y, didn't have to grind at all. I was able to just play through the game. It was nice. I enjoyed that personally. But then on top of that, in another video game related thing, for Elder Scrolls Online, my other main game that I play not quite every day, and I've taken a break from it since I finished. I achieved 2 goals. I have caught up entirely on all of the, out of the shadow, all of the story content that they put out for DLC, chapters, expansions, basically. I really enjoyed playing through those and actually listening to the story and going through and not just skipping stuff. So I did that, and I wanted to do the main quest for each one of the areas, and I have done that. And a new one releases on the 21st, my birthday. They're doing it just for me. I actually confirmed. I reached out to them, and they said, no, it's for you. It's just for you, because you were born on the 21st of June, and that's when we're going to release it. What is a summer solstice? It was really weird that they said that in their email. I don't fully understand why, but yeah. So I took a break from that once I got through all of the quests, and I started playing No Man's Sky again, which I played when it originally launched, but they have added a lot more content to it, and I've been having a lot of fun with that. I enjoy flying around in space and stuff. That also kind of coincided because I was watching The Expanse, which I have now watched all the seasons of that show that exist. And they were canceled, kind of, and I don't know if they're coming back, but I hope so, because they left it with a cliffhanger where I'm like, I'd like to know more. So I'll probably read the books at some point, but I really enjoyed that. And then I got to watch all of Ozark. I just finished that up this weekend, which was great. So, still making progress on other non-wildlife related or personal goals, kind of. Still doing that, still doing stuff, still making progress, still having fun, getting through the days when I don't go out and do wildlife related things. But now I'm done, because now I'm very hungry, and now I need to shower. Yep. Hey, look at this cat. This is a cat. She's doing cat stuff.